Elena pulled away when Stefan became the Ripper, but stayed with Damon through many of his spirals. Was that because she loved Damon more? The reason this debate never dies is because it looks like a love question, but it is really a question about moral standards. Many fans would say yes, Elena was absolutely applying a double standard. With Stefan, she was hurt, frightened, disappointed, and eventually distant. With Damon, she often stayed. She tried to understand him, save him, and believe that behind his worst actions, there was still pain, love, or a damaged part of him worth rescuing. From a Stefan fan's perspective, that feels deeply unfair. Stefan spent so much of his life fighting his vampire nature. He knew how dangerous his Ripper side was, and he feared hurting Elena more than anyone. But when he actually fell into that darkness, Elena's reaction often felt like, "How could you become this?" With Damon, however, she almost seemed to say, "I know you're terrible, but I still believe you can be better." That is why many fans call it bias. Elena wasn't unable to accept darkness. She was simply more willing to accept Damon's darkness. But saying Elena was just being unfair is also too easy, because Stefan's Ripper state and Damon's spirals are not exactly the same kind of darkness. Damon's worst moments often come from emotional explosions, anger, jealousy, heartbreak, insecurity. That does not excuse him. He still makes terrible choices, and he should be held responsible for them. But Stefan's Ripper state is different. It is not just one impulsive decision. It is a prolonged loss of control, almost like being swallowed by bloodlust until the person Elena knows seems to disappear. So for Elena, the fear is different. Damon's danger was visible from the beginning. She never thought he was perfect. So when Damon did something awful, she could be angry, but not always shocked. Stefan was different. Elena fell in love with the version of Stefan who was gentle, restrained, protective, and deeply attached to his humanity. His darkness was not just a flaw. It shattered the image of who she believed him to be. In simple terms, Damon doing something bad felt like the shadow side of who he had always been. Stefan becoming the Ripper felt like the person Elena loved had vanished. So the question is not only who was worse, it is also whose darkness destroyed Elena's belief more. Another point fans often bring up is the timeline. When Stefan was in his Ripper phase, Elena was still human. She was standing outside the vampire experience, watching something brutal and terrifying that she could not fully understand. Of course she was afraid. Later, Elena became a vampire herself. She began to understand hunger, heightened emotions, impulse, and the feeling of losing control. She was no longer just judging the darkness from the outside. She was living inside it. That is why her later tolerance toward Damon can feel uncomfortable. On one hand, she genuinely understands him better. On the other hand, that understanding often looks like she is giving Damon special treatment. There is also another layer. Stefan and Damon respond to their own darkness differently. When Stefan loses control, he hates himself. He pushes Elena away because he does not want her to see him at his worst. His shame creates distance. Damon is the opposite. When Damon spirals, it often feels like a plea for Elena to stay. He wants proof that he is still lovable, proof that he can still be saved, proof that she will not leave. So with Stefan, Elena receives the message, "Stay away. I am not worth saving." With Damon, she receives the message, "Stay. You are the only one who can pull me back." That creates a dangerous emotional pattern. One brother pushes her away because he is ashamed. The other pulls her closer because he needs redemption. So what is the final answer? The fairest answer is this. Elena did have emotional bias, but that is not the whole story. She was more forgiving with Damon. That is hard to deny. She was more likely to interpret his worst moments as trauma, pain, or a desperate need for love. With Stefan, she expected stability, morality, and restraint. So when Stefan fell, the disappointment was deeper. That is part of the double standard. She held Stefan to a higher expectation and Damon to a lower one. But that double standard did not come from nowhere. It came from how Elena first understood each brother. It came from her transition from human to vampire. It came from the different ways Stefan and Damon handled their darkness. So the cruel truth is this. Elena was not completely irrational, but she also was not completely fair. When she loved Stefan, she loved the part of him that kept choosing goodness. When she loved Damon, she loved the possibility that even someone damaged could still change for her. One represented safety. The other represented danger. One represented the ideal. The other represented desire. One made her believe she could return to a normal life. The other forced her to admit she was no longer normal. So did Elena stay with Damon because she loved him more? Partly, yes. But more accurately, she became someone who could understand Damon in a way she could not understand Stefan before. That is why this debate has no clean answer. If you side with Stefan, Elena looks like someone who failed the person who kept trying to be good. If you side with Damon, Elena looks like someone who finally accepted that love is not about perfection, but about seeing someone's darkness and still choosing to stay. Either way, one thing is clear: Elena's love was never completely fair. It was full of compassion, trauma, growth, and bias. And maybe that is exactly why The Vampire Diaries still keeps people arguing. It does not ask us to decide who was innocent. It asks us to watch how contradictory people can become when love, fear, and darkness are all tangled together.